this one. Remember to mention it when you can.
It's beautiful, Chamberlain. Very soothing to watch. You were talking about it streaming. This is more like a gut. You know, look at it. Running it, all of its glory down the hills of Gurara.
It's as if we really don't care about these things. When we drive past there, say, please, I need to go and survive first.
Well, I want to believe it's changing. Yes, much as a lot of people are very consumed with, you know, existence and they want to be able to earn daily bread. But these days, I think a lot more Nigerians are beginning to understand that, look, there'll be many more days to earn existence. Sometimes let's just sit down, calm down, and admire the work of God. You know, admire it, take it in. He made all of this beauty for us to enjoy. Why wouldn't we take a moment sometimes and just stare at it? Be lost in it for just a moment or two. Be lost in it. Let the worries go. They will be there for you to pick up again. I mean, the good book says today has enough worries of its own. Why do you want to, you know, be worrying about tomorrow and next tomorrow and August the 1st? Please, August the 1st will have its own thing. But today, this moment, take a look. Yes, take a look at what's happening at Gurara.
No problem.
I hope it's calming you down.
Well, I'm actually very, very calm. I mean, if you listen to the tone of Chamberlain, you would know that he's the one that needs to go visit Gurara waterfalls to calm down. Or to use the words of that boy, to be calming down.
But I went and brought you this.
No.
Doesn't that mean I'm calm?
No. Look, Chamberlain, no. You didn't go out. You didn't go out. Go somewhere, just calm, just sit by, right? Just be looking at it. You know, it'll calm you down. And I think, you know, Malfoy, to a large extent, people, we take for granted our mental health in our part of the nation. And these kinds of sites, sincerely, these kinds of sites, wake up to it, will most certainly, unequivocally, calm you down to face your day. So, and I'm glad that, Chamberlain, that you mentioned movies. Sincerely, just imagine that Black Panther was shot here. Come on. By the way, that reminds me, these epic movies, Malfoy and Chamberlain, that are shot all over the place in the country, I mean, imagine that they shot such movies here, like I think Basharu Guy is coming out, House of Guy, I think, is Bolanle Austin Peters film is coming out. Just imagine that such a film is shot in this kind of place, without the power lines and airplanes flying all across. Definitely a sight to behold any day, anytime.
Well, you know, speaking about which, this is the kind of place governors, who is the Minister of Tourism? Look, while we try to remember, these are the kind of things they need to make an industry out of. Make deliberate plans, organize.
John, I just remembered.
Yeah, so send, you know, such that when anyone wants to go to these kind of places, you see that they are carefully thought out, the infrastructure, the security, organization to get there and back. And speaking about ministers and governors, today, we understand that they will be continuing their meeting. That's the governors. The governors will meet with a select group of ministers today. And the plan is they want to see how they could stave off some of these planned protests in different parts of the country. So they had, I mean, ministers had met previously. They're doing what they can. I think they also met with the president. So all kinds of meetings with the SGF, 2 meetings have been held. So, but a select group of ministers will meet with the governors today. They want to see what they can do to ensure that this happens. Even reps themselves are asking federal government to dialogue with the leaders. I know that the Minister of Information did say that FG is open to dialoguing with some of those protesters, and then different governors have been also speaking about all of these things. And, you know, it just reminds me, I wonder, if they pay this kind of attention to these kind of issues when people want to protest, where have these governors been all this while? In their cocoon? This is the kind of attention, the kind of alacrity, the kind of agility you need to bring to governance. Not when you go there, you sleep in Abuja, you travel out of the country, you don't care what happens in your state. You should be on your toes right now.
I couldn't agree more with you, Chamberlain. I mean, we're seeing a lot of moves, a lot of efforts, a lot of discussions, a lot of behind-the-scene moves. Some of them overt, some of them covert, some of them, well, I'm trying to find the word now. Some of them, will I say, not so legal, some of them legal. All of the moves to try and avert a protest. And you just wonder, What if you put half that energy in trying to provide food for the people?
Yeah.
What if you use that energy to try and get the farms, going? What if we mobilize in such a way that we don't even have to be talking about a protest? Because when these things were happening, I mean, let's face it, yes, the price of fuel went up. Yes, the coffers were not what you were expecting to find. You decided to float the dollar, etc., etc. What did you think was going to be the expectation? Did you really think that, okay, just a mere pronouncement of saying, oh, we sent food, and then you find governors doing, how will I put it now, doing a ceremony, making a ceremony out of giving food to people, food that would barely last them a week, or if it's too much, maybe a month. We make a lot of it. Did we think that was really going to solve the problem? That's a big question. So assuming all of these meetings, now we're beginning to see ministers meeting with governors, governors meeting with ministers, whichever way, an emergency meeting summoned by the NSA, having ministers in attendance,
I see,
etc., etc. Now we're beginning to see even traditional institutions are coming out to say, look, we're going to have Oro in our state.
What?
Oh, yes.
That must be a political Oro. Is it the natural one or what?
I don't know. Look, Chamberlain, these people do Oro whenever they like. They do.
Oh,
it just maybe it just so happens to be coinciding with when people, want to do elections.
The date coincides with
certain
August 1 to what date?
Yes, yes. This Oro
August
now
12
we understand is happening from 1st to 15th. Of August, and it's in a place
that's why I take the whole month.
As cosmopolitan as Lagos. I mean, these are all the things that we're beginning to see.
Wonders never cease.
Underhand tactics. But hey, the truth of the matter is, I don't really think that people enjoy coming out to protest. The idea is not, nobody enjoys complaining. If there was something to actually enjoy, I mean, who wants to travel to Gurara, for instance?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I want to be able to explore my country? Why wouldn't I want to stay in the comfort of my home, go about my business, earn a decent living, and be able to enjoy what it is I have earned happily by buying things in the market, taking my children out, being able to pay school fees comfortably? These are the things that average Nigerian, bargains for. So the idea is not that, oh, people just want to go out for the heck of it. I don't think that is the idea. If that is not the idea, then I think it's time that leaders at every level put their heads together to say, how can we communicate with our people and make things better for them? If it's going to take a long time, how are we going to involve them? How are we going to keep them abreast of every stage that we're in? How do we show them that we really have our their interest at heart by how we live and work? That we're not living a very ostentatious lifestyle, rubbing it in their faces, and think that people will not talk or that they will not protest. At the same time, telling them to tighten their belts when they see that your own belt, rather than for it to get tight, is getting looser. You're loosening it one more hole to the very end of the belt. So these are the contradictions that are currently existing in our economy. The rich seem to be getting richer, and the poor seem to be, dealing with the dregs. These are the things that are making people quite upset. And I think that we really need to put our heads together and see how we can come up with solutions. Ayo.
Issues that every time these issues arise, Malkwe and Chamberlain, you would remember that I always ask our guests, how did we get here? Couldn't this have been avoided? So I'll ask that question again. Is it impossible to have avoided the situation that we find ourselves? Of course it is. As far back as the 80s, we have been talking about one kind of protest or the other. What has changed fundamentally in our approach to governance, other than changing from the military rule to civilian rule? Even in the civilian rule, I mean, there are those, arguably, who would say that, look, we probably even had more developmental infrastructure in this country under military rule than in the civilian rule. Does that mean that it is more desirable to have military rule? Heck no. But the problem is, do we even know what the problem is as we speak right now? Take this instance. So now governors are going to converge in Abuja to have a meeting with ministers in order to forestall a strike or a protest by some people. The thing that comes to mind is a word in the Yoruba that calls arijena, that those who benefit when things are going awry. And it would seem like it's more profitable for some people when things are upside down. It's more profitable for some people when we have to deal with an emergency, release emergency funds, deal with this problem, this emergency, save some money, and wait until another time. We seem to have a reactive policy as opposed to a proactive policy. Came up when we were having that conversation about cholera, that the policy between the Ministry of Environment and Ministry of Health was that we need to have a proactive health environment where we prevent occurrences from happening as opposed to reacting or dealing with them when they happen. Has that policy changed? Now, we are also talking about local government autonomy, and some people are saying that this thing is unconstitutional and all of those things. For God's sake, if only we dealt with these problems from the root. Now we are trying to go check a leaking ceiling. What happened to the foundation of the house? There are so many things that we ought to have done that we have not done. And what are people asking for? Basic things. Food. For God's sake, food and health, good health. That's all. You give Nigerians that, they relax, they allow you to do their thing. How difficult could this be? Chamberlain and Markwe.
Well, you know what they say. Your guess is as good as mine. But yeah, let's go ahead and take you through some of the dailies this morning.
One of the major issues making the headlines this morning is the planned protest. The Daily Times leads it that one, FG pleads for more time, says all issues will be resolved in a way to ensure peace, stability. NLC clarifies position on looming protest, says it's not part of organizers. Details on the inside pages of the paper. The Nigerian News Direct has that one as well, planned protest. We will continue to engage in your interest. Give us time, FG begs Nigerians. No one is going to sleep. We're all working for Nigeria. Scrap to the minister. APC urges protesters to shelve plans, says Tinubu not cause of economic hardship. Uzadima warns against protests, says it's too early to judge Tinubu's government. Details on the inside pages. The Blueprint newspaper has that one as well. Plots to hijack protests, unleash mayhem, thicken. That's coming from the federal government. Counters out, say NLC, ADSC, Northern Coalition, tanker drivers allege infiltration. Plans to pay stipends to unemployed varsity polytechnic graduates underway. That's according to Idris. Find out the details of that one on the inside pages of the paper this morning. And the Vanguard newspaper has the story as well. Hardship will handle planned protests as family matter, ascribed to the federal government. Plead to Nigerians to give him more time. Southeast governors warn against nationwide protests. We can't withdraw from protests we didn't organize, according to Labour, tells FG states to listen to cries of Nigerians. Warns against use of brute force on protesters. These amidst other riders to the story on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. Dialogue with protest organizers. That's the lead story of the Daily Trust newspaper. Opposition reps tell FG. Demonstration may compromise peace, according to government. Tinubu needs more time about Benin governors. Story is on page 4 of the paper this morning. The front page of the New Telegraph has this one. High cost of living. Public health crisis looms as Nigerians resort to food rationing. Details continue on page 3, but look at the riders. Many families survive on a meal a day. Man, 148.7 million Nigerians living in multidimensional poverty. Common man can't afford critical drugs for healthy living, according to doctors. And of course, that's planned protest stories right there as well on the front page of the New Telegraph. FG appeals for calm, pleads for time. If you look at the front page of the Business Day newspaper, this is what you have. Dangote is seen disrupting European refineries. What does that mean? The details of that story you find on the inside pages of the paper. Daily Independent. Tax on forex gains will deter foreign investors, bankers warn. Ask Senate to intervene, say it amounts to double taxation. It will reduce investment, decrease liquidity, increase costs. Check the meaning of all of that on the inside pages. And right under the picture on the front page, duty-free food imports will impoverish us. Farmers tell FG. say food importation risks destroying country's agriculture. Check the details of that story on the inside pages of the paper. The Nigerian Observer has foreign investments worth 311.41 billion naira liquidated in H1 2024, says NGX. These are some of the papers we have for you this morning.
At Access Holdings, we are heading into the next phase of our evolution. And with our rights issue, you get an increased stake in it. From the 8th of July to the 14th of August, you can get your share of over 17 billion shares at 19 naira 75 kobo per share. That's one new ordinary share to every 2 shares held. Visit theaccesscorporation.com to subscribe. Access Holdings, where financial solutions connect the world.
We are passionate about 2 things in Nigeria. The first is football. The second is our rice. And nobody celebrates like a Nigerian. So, for every goal scored, every mark made, you can be sure to always come back home to rice. Celebrate with Nigerian Premium Big Bull Rice, homegrown just like you. Big Bull Rice, tasty rice, nourished you.
We are thrilled to have you on board as we chart the course for our next chapter. We're inviting you to take up your rights in full for 19 naira 75 kobo per share. From the 8th of July to 14th of August, take advantage of the chance to acquire 1 more ordinary share for every 2 shares in your portfolio. Visit www.theaccesscorporation.com to subscribe. Access Holdings, where financial solutions connect the world. Against the backdrop of the planned nationwide protest on the 1st of August, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation summoned the ministers of President Tinubu's cabinet to an emergency meeting. After the meeting, which held behind closed doors, ministers speak on the outcome with an appeal to Nigerians.
There's no need for any protest. Let us all calm down. A lot is happening. Nigeria is going to move and march on. And we believe that whatever government comes up will be in the interest of Nigeria. We don't think that there is need for any protest. We are appealing for calm. We are appealing for a peaceful resolution or peaceful approach to any issue.
Advise my fellow young Nigerians to disassociate themselves from the planned protest. We need to look at the entire Nigerian project and what the impacts of the economic reforms, especially the macroeconomic reforms of the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration.
In a related development, the Minister of Information and National Orientation hosts a meeting with members of the Charismatic Bishops' Conference. The planned nationwide protest is the point of discussion here, as the minister maintains that the federal government makes a pledge to uphold people's rights to protest.
The president is not an opponent of protest of any kind, but the president is an opponent of violence. He is an opponent of anything that will negatively hamper the well-being of Nigerians. We know that it is almost impossible to hold this protest and then have peace at the end of the day.
We have rather decided to go all out and call for a truce. We have decided to sue for peace and to humbly request that our brothers and sisters who are aggrieved in one way or the other, that they will allow some time while we continue to communicate and negotiate with this government on the areas that are pertinent to them.
The minister adds that the federal government is working on a policy to pay students of tertiary institutions and unemployed graduates some stipends pending their formal employment. From Abuja, Victoria Long John for Channels Television News.
All right, so to discuss that matter and more, we've got two gentlemen joining us here in the studio. Honorable Ogene Ego is a member of ECOWAS Parliament. We also do have Honorable Philip Agbasa, Deputy Chairman, House Committee on Information. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you so much. Honor to be around.
Yes, the National Assembly passed the budget. And yes, we also did see that part of the explanation was that infrastructure, they'll build roads, the Calabar, Port Harcourt, Maiduguri, all of those infrastructure developments alongside the Forex 2023 Finance Act. But these days, we get to see that almost everything is connected, wanting to see how is it going to stave off this planned protest, as it were. But for you, do you think the significance of passing this budget has been lost on some of these issues being raised at the moment, Honorable Agbasa?
Thank you very much. You see, the essence of the supplementary budget is to first address not the hardship, because when you talk about increase in minimum wage, we have all argued that it is long overdue. You know, the welfare of Nigerian workers, the welfare of the average Nigerian citizen, you know, is long overdue. So what government has done in this regard is to make provision to take care of the minimum wage increase, which the House of Representatives and the Senate who have all passed, and Mr. President, of course, has agreed, you know, to implement as quickly as possible, to even go back as far back as May, you know, to touch on the well-being of our people. The other issue is that those who are talking about protests are equally agitating, you know, for better living condition for every one of us. So I believe the government and those who want to protest, they have one singular aim: to make life easier. The other question is that why some of us, you know, who used to be part of this before, are now having
what? The protests?
No, part of the struggle. We used to be in the trenches, you know, and sometime in the past it was protests. But what we are saying at the moment, because of our past experiences, you know, the recent one, which was what happened during NSAS, and most recently, other developments across the globe. If you go back to Kenya, you know, after the protests, of course, government made some concessions, you know, effected some immediate changes. But again, the aggrieved protester, the average aggrieved protester, refused to leave the street. He wanted to achieve something immediately on the street. And this became, you know, another man's property. You know, what government has been able to build, public infrastructure, people's properties, like it happened in NSAS.
You didn't mention the government also sacked their cabinets. That hasn't happened yet. So are you using that as an example of what should happen here or what may happen here?
Yes.
Are you looking at the complex whole or you're taking some parts?
Yes, because if you look at the size of Kenya and the size of the government structure there and the size of our country, the population of our country, and the structure that we have at the moment, it hasn't reached that bogus level.
I believe. I'm sure they'll know how to handle.
So the other aspect of the budget, you know, what we do basically in the National Assembly at the moment, in considering budget proposals, you must look at certain parameters. One, how well these issues, the issues contained in the budget, you know, are able or capable of addressing, you know, the necessities of life.
Okay. So, Honorable Ego, that's why you come in here, because, I mean, we've seen budgets pass.
Yes.
And then sometimes many wonder, the line items they usually see in the budget, some of them repeated, some of them they think it's absolutely unnecessary. Hence the question, have budgets actually succeeded in staving off matters such as these ones that are being talked about now ahead of the protest? I mean, reasons why they want to protest.
Yeah, let me say that in the past, a lot of budgets have not really been able to solve the problem they intended to solve. Otherwise, we don't have bad roads, we don't have people suffering and that kind of thing. But what I've been impressed with about this particular war is the speed with which Mr. President has acted. Mr. President has passed...
The speed with which it was passed?
Yes.
Without rigor?
Yeah, first of all, Mr. President with Labour have agreed a minimum wage. In some government, when you agree like that, it will take time. They will say there's no budget for it. But because of the interest of Mr. President for the populace, and because he knows that Nigerians are suffering, he immediately took the budget to the House. And with cooperation of both houses, the budget has been passed. So this minimum wage, it shows that it's going to be executed as soon as possible because the budget has been passed. All they would need to do is to provide the cash backing for it. So,
but the previous minimum wage or wages, they were never actually implemented. Several states didn't even pay because they said they could not pay.
Yeah. Now, those are the states. Any states that say they cannot pay now, you know, I'm sure when they go back to the polls, there are people who don't vote for them because the states are getting so much money because of exchange rate differential, because of the subsidy removal from oil. The states are getting several times the money they were getting before. So if a state governor says they cannot pay, they are lying. If you look at EFCC, say one governor stole 80 billion naira. He cannot say they are saying the former governor took 430 billion naira. This shows you that there's a lot of money. There's sufficient money in the states. And then for the local government, now that through the efforts of Mr. President, local government now have financial autonomy. You know, I'm not sure anybody, especially government, will be able to say they cannot pay. And they're talking about the private sector that say they cannot pay. I don't know whether the private sector knows what they are doing. Because a lot of manufacturing companies, they have a lot of goods in the warehouse. People cannot buy them because salaries are too low. A man who earns 30,000 naira, what can he buy? But now that the money has been more than doubled, at least he'll be able to buy it. It is in the interest of the private sector.
Give it away? I don't understand.
No, what I'm saying is that it is the interest of the private sector to welcome this salary increase with whole heart. Because this salary increase will enable Nigerians to now have substantial fund in their hand to be able to shop. Before, if you were earning 30,000, you cannot go to a supermarket and go and buy anything. You can't even buy. But with the salary now, even though not high enough, but at least it's good enough. What I'm trying to say is that the private sector should not be an opposition to this salary increase. The government should not be an opposition to the salary increase. And Mr. President has approved. And let me say one thing, that Mr. President quickly took this budget, you know, supplementary budget, to enable them to pay the salary. It shows clearly that Mr. President is aware that Nigerians are suffering. As against what other people are saying that, oh, President is just locked up, he doesn't know what Nigerians are suffering. The President is aware that Nigerians are suffering, and he's doing something about it. This supplementary budget is one of the things. There are several other things he's doing about it, which I can talk about. One of it is the fact that he has now told customs, remove duty and taxes from any food imported. That shows that the President knows that the price of food is too high. We need it to support the people. Also, the President have gone further to serve 740 trailers of food to all the states of the Federation. We need trailer continue what has offered.
Not disputing anything that the President has done, you know, but the question now is, what effect is it really having on the people? I mean, have we been able to measure, for instance, this, when the President announced on the day he was inaugurated, May 29, that subsidy was gone, it was from that day, it was barely a week after that the NNPC announced an increment in the price of petrol. For the past 1 year, you know, people have had to eke a living, regardless of whatever it is has happened. government's response to, looking after their welfare has taken time, to come to fruition? Is it minimum wage negotiations? It only just came to fruition a year after these increments have been effected.
Yeah.
So people have had to bear the brunt for quite a while, and they've borne the brunt in many other areas because, cost of healthcare, for those who need life-saving medication, they can tell you, just what the story has been for them. And people have had to, endure all of this. So do you think that there has been, and I know that throughout all of this period, government has been making different pronouncements, have there been concrete ways of measuring what government says and wants to happen with what is actually happening on the ground?
Yeah. Now, let me tell you that the president took over government barely a year ago. And apart from increase in price of fuel, many things conspired. The harvest this year from tomato planting, tomato, pepper was very bad. One, because of the weather, and then secondly, because of bandits that have taken over where farmers used to work, used to farm. Some of them were not things that the government foresaw when they were coming in. But now that has come to light, the president is taking plans, is addressing it. He has said in one forum that the box stops on the table, and he knows that it's responsibility. But let me say further that the production of food is not just a problem of Mr. President. We have 36 states in the Federation plus Abuja, which is 37. Every state has a Ministry of Agriculture. Every state is getting bumper money. They also need to encourage their people to go into farming. I can tell you for free that a lot of states, they don't even do bush clearing for their people. They don't buy tractor, like Niger State government have bought a lot of tractors, clearing the bush and telling farmers.
Do members do the same thing for their constituencies? Well, if not, if they had done enough, or at least close to enough, would there be agitations like this?
Let me come in here because, in recent time, we've seen this kind of support Mr. President has given to the governors. Members have not received that kind of support. Nevertheless, we, in our own way and right, we've tried to provide through our constituency projects, so we are provided what's it called, farming implements, tractors, fertilizers. Yeah. Just yesterday, I sent a trailer load of fertilizer to my constituency to be shared to my people. Many other members are equally doing that. So basically, the parliament is working very hard, in its own way, outside its own mandate of lawmaking oversight, in terms of constituency projects to support our people. So now on the issue of equally helping the farmers, yes, to a large extent, we have equally, convened Security Summit because even if these farming implements are available.
Wait, pardon me, what about the 70 billion naira that the members of the National Assembly were said to have gotten from the executive?
70 billion naira? That is news to me, sir.
You didn't get any funds from the federal government at the initial stage? He said, I think the words at that time was to help the newcomers into the parliament to settle down, to settle in.
No. No member of parliament received 70 billion naira or
How much did they receive from the executive?
From the executive? We have not received any support from the executive in terms to address issues back in the constituency other than our salary and the allowances that we get.
The executive didn't give any money, which was tagged to help the newcomers in the assembly settle down? They didn't get any money whatsoever?
No. If Mr. President gave money to governors, I think this is have always
to
been
lawmakers.
To lawmakers, no. We were not given anything.
Honorable, I know you want to talk about, okay, you want to quickly say something.
Yeah, there was something I was trying to say, that it is the responsibility of every state governor to ensure that their people get involved in agricultural production. When we had regions, every region had their product. Southwest had cocoa, the North had granite, and the Southeast had oil, Delta had, Bende had rubber, Governments were proactive. They were providing things for the people. Before, in the Southwest, everywhere, we used to farm tomato, pepper, and everything. But now everybody waits for tomato to come from the north. Now that bandits are disturbing the idea, and then able to arrive. So what I'm saying is that every governor needs to sit right and ensure that there's bumper harvest in this area. Even the local government that have now got financial autonomy, every local government chairman must ensure that farmers in their area also help to farm. So what I'm saying is that this problem just came up. It has not been there before. It is during Tinubu's government that this problem of food shortage came up. And the president is tackling it. He's doing a lot of things to tackle it. And that's why I think that Nigerians need to give him time. The man has been there for just 1 year.
No, Honorable, I don't think food shortage just came up now. I remember the former government. No, the former government had several meetings about food shortage.
That's former government. But I'm talking about under Tinubu's government.
That it just came up.
Yes, the issue of the food shortage just came to light. And that has come to light. The man is working day and night to ensure that there was even a provision that he has made for money to go to the state to help to tackle it. So every state government should take it because the major duty of government is to ensure security and welfare of the people.
Well, you've said that.
So every state government and the local government should also join hands with Mr. President. Instead of everybody saying, oh, he's a president, food is short. No, it's not only the duty of the president. But I'm sure that with what Mr. President is doing now, in 18 months' time, this issue of food shortage or the high prices will be a matter of the past. That's why we are saying, let's be patient.
18 months' time.
Yes.
18 months.
Yes, it could be lower. I'm just giving...
Yes, 18 months is a full year and 6 months.
Yes.
But let me quickly, ask you this about budgets. Let me come to Honorable Agbese now. Recently, the president sent an amendment, I think, for another 6 trillion naira to be approved. We understand that a part of it was because of this minimum wage, which the president recently approved and agreed upon with Labour. Some people have said, what precisely is happening? Because also this same year, in fact, maybe about 2 months ago or less than, another amendment was sent to the National Assembly for the extension of the capital project in the 2023 budget. Is that correct?
Yes. Okay, yes, to quickly touch that. Now, today we have a parliament that is up to its responsibility. We equally have a president that respects due process and the rule of law. You know, in time past, some of these things were carried out even without legal backing.
Just help us understand what is the rationale behind extending one budget, the 2023 budget, the capital part of it, for maybe another 1 year, and also having a 2024 budget running concurrently and also being, given as a... It didn't even come as a supplementary budget.
No.
It came as an amendment to the current budget. Isn't that correct?
Yes, they mean supplementary and amendment, they mean the same thing. Now, let me say this. What Mr. President did, or what the parliament we saw in the wisdom of Mr. President to grant approval to that amendment, you see, there are capital projects that are still ongoing, initially captured in the old budget. And when Mr. President came on board, May 29, 2023, the Ministry of Finance did something very novel, not to release total sum of money to agencies, to MDAs at a go. So funds were being released in tranches to the MDAs. And at the cost of that, some MDAs were still in the process of executing and payments have not been made. So what basically they did, with the amendment to the then supplementary and the 2023 budget was for Parliament to give the legal backing to say, yes, you can complete this project and make payments. So you don't cut that budget or you don't stop those projects and now come back to Parliament again to look for how to initiate those projects as if they were new projects. So all Mr. President has said through that submission before the Parliament and the approval that we gave as a Parliament, say, go and finish this project. The funds are there. You can make the funds available to them when these projects are completed. And for the 2024 budget and the amendment that we have just carried out, I'm sure today or tomorrow Mr. President is going to sign the amendment. Mr. President has said, yes, aside minimum wage, there are still other critical interventions. One, to tackle the issue of food shortage in the country, we need to go extra mile, to inject more money into the Ministry of Agric to carry out the activities. So that's why the supplementary budget, the amendment that came to us, actually came, to tackle critical areas. And that's why we had it only in Ministry of Agric, Works, Health, and Education. Not every segment of the budget. And that's why it's an amendment. you know, to say, yes, we have provision for 25 naira in this area. We intend, you know, in tandem with realities, to opt it to 30 naira. And what Parliament did, that is a unique thing about this Parliament. We all sat down as a Parliament to say, okay, let's look at it critically. These projects that are captured in the amendment, are they going to affect everybody? And that is why the roads that are captured, because for us to talk about agriculture today, we must tackle the issue of road. The farm produce, when they are produced, they must leave the rural communities and get to the urban centers as quickly as possible.
Honorable, let me just quickly confirm this. Are you a member of the Labour Party?
No, I was voted on the platform of the All Progressive Congress, and I'm still a member of the APC.
Okay, just wanted to confirm that. Because, you know, for some people, they have been saying that it looks like all the members in the National Assembly, even those who were voted on from opposition parties, have all been singing from the same hymn sheet. So every time it doesn't appear that there has been any critical debate on some of the issues that have come up.
Let me quickly correct that. Yeah, you see, the problems that we have today in Nigeria, they do not respect our ethnic affiliations. The problems that we're having today, they have no respect for our political parties. All that we have been voted into the parliament to do is to see how we can better the lot of our people. So if you are there with that philosophy, you have that mindset, you will understand that parliament is not a place where you come, you know, to wrestle or to box. It has to be intellectually driven.
Of course,
and that's
intellectual debates and what should happen. I'm saying, do we get to see enough of that on the floor of the National Assembly?
No, we've been having very robust debate, you know, on the floor and outside the floor. Because, for instance, at the course of considering the supplementary budget, the House Committee on Appropriation under the leadership of Right Honorable Kabiru Bichi, you know, first, in the wisdom of the current speaker, majority of the committees, federal character, appropriation, are all equal representation committees. That is to say that you have people on the committee drawn from the 36 states. Then you have a special window also given to special people like women to be part of this committee. So, like appropriation, in appropriation you have members of the Labour Party, the APC and everything. So the peace and tranquility that we have in the parliament today, it is not that people are docile, people do not understand what they are doing, or there's any special relationship between the individuals, you know, that conflict with their political leanings. It is the fact that we all, you know, have subdued our individual differences and understanding, our selfish interests, to work together in harmony for the good of our country.
Honorable Ogene, let me ask you, is it a peace that disturbs you? Are you satisfied with this peace in the National Assembly?
Yeah, because when you're in the National Assembly, what you want to do is what you can get for your people.
I would not. I would have been surprised if you had
what you can get for your people and for the nation. So if the members decide that instead of fighting against each other, let us all work in tandem and struggle to bring dividend of democracy to our people. That's all. Because when you get back to the constituency, everybody's asking, what have you brought for us? You know, so
now let me just quickly.
Unlike in America or Britain, where it's driven more by ideology, here we are still developing.
You've spoken about.
Mark, but let me let me add. You know, the ideology of the various political parties in Nigeria, it's summarized in one word: the people's welfare. So if the people's welfare is my ideology, and I'm of the All Progressive Congress, and the PDP members also have the ideology of what do I do for my people? But you see in Parliament, basically, what leads to rancor is where there's inequality. You know, where people are not treated fairly, where there's no justice. And I will speak for the House of Representatives under the leadership of Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas. It is a parliament that has been able to carry the interests of the various constituencies along.
Okay. Honorable, you know, one of the things you did say was that the governors are getting a lot of money. I don't know if you're aware that the governors have gone to court, you know, to also challenge what is happening with the FAC account. They allege that not all of the monies that accrue to the Federation account are being shared with the governors and local governments as stipulated by the Constitution. Are you aware of that suit?
Well, I'm not aware they went to court, but if they did, it would be unfortunate because I know that all of them sit, all the account generals of all the states, you know, they sit with the account general of the Federation in sharing of this money. So if somebody was not given to them, of course, they should mention it there. But let them not use that as a protest, as a pretext, not to pay the minimum wage. Because Mr. President has expectation to agree the minimum wage, has made a budget for it, And I think that every government should pay it. I don't want a situation where they will come and say, oh, the whole body effect did not come to us. Let them tell us. Some governors who used to get about 3 billion monthly before, they now get about 12 billion. Some who get 12 billion, I get it 30-something, 20-something billion. It's an enormous amount of money that is going to the state. Right. So they going to court to say, oh, they are not getting all the money. I think those are issues they can settle with the presidency.
Well, many are still talking about the protests that occurred in 2012 when the ACN was kicking against the subsidy removal. And now the subsidy removal appears to be at the center of all of this price hike across board. Many just think that, look, that's the way they play politics in this country. So the government shouldn't be, well, maybe apprehensive about some of these protests. What they should focus on is also ensure that those who are threatening violence here and there should be reined in or cautioned. But my colleague has more questions for you on this one. Ayo.
I just want to stick with the issue raised about the governors. Honorable Ego, you're the one that was talking about it, and I'm really glad that you did, because I'm just wondering whether, first of all, whether the members of the National Assembly have the ears of their governor to take the issues at the National Assembly to them. I'm not sure, but you may educate me as a politician. A good number of people who go into the National Assembly to represent their states usually have one way or the other some backing from their governors. So if that is the case, or if that be the case, and the governors are there in the states, the legislators are there in the two chambers of the National Assembly, do you think the governors listen to the legislators to know how the federal government, which they are part of, is feeling about what's happening in the states?
Yeah, let me say that most legislators are very close to their governors. In fact, in most of the states, it's the governors that support and picks the legislators, while in some other states, there's tough primary to get there. But it's difficult for a legislator not to be close to the governor, because issues that affect his government, he must bring them to the National Assembly and vice versa. But what I'm saying is that the governors have a lot of areas to ventilate whatever grievances they have. They can be the presidency, they have...
Second, Honorable, I'm not even as concerned, my apologies, I'm not even as concerned about their grievances or grouses, as opposed to the developmental initiatives that people expect of them. You spoke about their responsibility in the space of agriculture.
That is it.
Now, we talked about Benue State. I mean, look at the number plates of some of these states. Benue State, for instance, is, called the food basket of the nation. That's, for me, is very, very instructive. And I'm wondering whether or not Benue State is still as food basket as it was in time past. There are those who would also point to Niger State for one product or the other, and a good number of states all over the nation having one specialty or the other. So if we had all these things, and the federal government is still talking about preparing or setting some money aside for agriculture, what do you think is happening right here? That's the reason a good number of people will wonder, hey, what's the federal government got to do with agriculture in the states, when the states are the ones that have authority over their land and they can talk to their farmers?
That is it.
What do you think is happening here?
That is it. Yes. That's what I'm saying. That a lot of the state governments have failed in their responsibility to their people on the issue of agriculture. You'll be surprised that even states in the southwest, southeast, in south, they are waiting for food to come from the north or across the border. Meanwhile, all this is tomato, pepper. With the support of the state, this can be planted very easily. But the states have not taken it as part of their responsibilities to feed people, because food was coming cheaply from the north. But now that the harvest is paltry, the harvest is very low this year, the states, what I'm saying is that the states should now sit up and take it as their responsibility. Even the local governments also. Any state that cannot feed their populace, it shows they are not serious. Growing up, the tomato we use in cooking was just planted around our house. And I remember in Lagos, in those days, when we traveled to somewhere like Ife, to Ilesha and Co., when you are coming back to Lagos, on corner of the road, we see heaps of tomatoes, heaps of pepper. You just buy your vehicle, you carry them home. But these days, when you pass those roads, you don't see it anymore. Who shows that something is wrong? Everybody is depending on only one area to provide food. And the population of Nigeria is growing. Now, because of climate change, there's flood. Sometimes the harvest is not as good as it is. So every state government must go back to look at what their state can plant well. Even in the areas like Niger Delta, where it is swampy. If you go to China, India, Thailand, they have swamp rice, which feeds millions of people.
Well, to be honest, Honorable,
you don't have enough dry land like in the north.
We're aware of a number of other organizations, even in the south of Nigeria right now, who are saying, look, irrespective of how that place is, agriculture can still thrive. And there's not just one kind of agriculture. There are different kinds of agriculture. We'll come to that some other time. Honorable Agbese, let me ask you this. I've always raised issues about whether or not there is significant or collaboration between the federal government and the state government. Let's not miss sight of the fact that the federal government is made up of the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. So it is safe for anyone to know that the National Assembly is part of the federal government. Now, do you see the kind of collaboration that ought to happen between the federal and state governments? And do you see that in any initiative of the federal government being openly welcomed by the governors to the benefit of the people? I'm asking that against the backdrop of the National Livestock Transformation Plan of, I think, 2021, and even the one that came before it, the Economic Sustainability Plan. Each of these plans had state governments integrated in there, but it would seem like all of those initiatives were just fantastic ideas on paper, never really got the buy-in of the governors at the subnationals.
Yes, we have to commend Mr. President, because in the past these things were not followed, given the necessary political touches. Now, under the leadership of His Excellency President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, we have seen, collaboration between the executive and the National Assembly. That also we have seen between his government and the state government. Nevertheless, the recent disagreement between the federal government that they had to go to the Supreme Court before the issue of local government autonomy was settled will also tell you that while Mr. President is making all the efforts in Abuja to make sure that Nigerians are happy, some of the state governors are not readily available, to support that initiative. So for me, I want to say that it is a call on the governors to see that they also have a lot to do for the masses of our country. They must ensure that some of these issues within their jurisdiction also work well, because like the level of corruption at the state level, we haven't really seen that at the center. And each time a governor is arrested or a governor leaves office, we hear about this bogus figures.
Honorable, you permit me for butting in. Permit me to butt in for a second. There's a question that I put to Honorable Ego the other time about whether or not the legislators have the ears of their governors. Now, you are still in active service at the national level. So, and saying that the governors need to sit off sounds like this is the only avenue that legislators can speak to their governors. The governors are supposed to get some kind of support. Just a second. How do legislators, your colleagues, and even yourself, relate with your governors and take the messages from the federal government to the state governments for the betterment of the people?
Well, some of my colleagues are very fortunate to have governors, who are very cooperative, and governors that are also focused, governors that have the interest and the welfare of their people at heart. Unfortunately, for some of us from Benue State, we have a governor who is deaf and dumb, who listens to nobody. He prays all the time, and for him, he walks according to the dictates of the spirit. So, but in all, I believe that generally parliamentarians, have this collaboration with the state governors, to address some of the issues. Because on the floor of the National Assembly, we've seen people proposing bills and motions that are to address, specific issues bordering on their state. If you look at the powers of the federal government or the rules of the federal government, not everything that the state government can actually do. So for instance, construction of superhighways, and interventions in tertiary education, the federal government is doing its best. So when there's collaboration between the governors and the federal parliamentarians, these things come way easier. And if you look at the
intervention,
development in some of the states,
my apologies
where,
again, Honorable.
Yes.
Is there any way that the National Assembly can, I don't know, engineer something to ensure that the governors do the needful? Because at the end of the day, it's the people that matter.
No, okay, for instance, like the constitutional amendment, we are trying to get their buy-in from the beginning. There are equally other programs that have been organized by the leadership of the National Assembly, to use political understanding to engage the governors and see that they equally deliver, to the masses. So basically, that is what we are doing. I believe that if the governors, to a large extent, see that there is any need, to collaborate with members of the National Assembly, we are always ready, we are always willing. And Mr. President has, in his wisdom, as a Democrat, as an ex-parliamentarian, has also seen, how vital the parliament is. And that is why he's working hand in hand with the parliament to provide, the dividends of democracy to Nigerians. So lastly, I would just add that for now, I believe that Mr. President is just 1 year in office, and he has outlined some critical programs for our citizens. If we give him a little more time, like 2 or 3 years, we'll be able to assess him fairly on the basis of the promises that he has made, on the basis of the reforms that he has initiated. And if these reforms are not working, even some of us in the parliament will be eager, and willing to join our colleagues in the trenches, to agitate and protest. But I think for now, I want to call on comrades to say it is not yet time for protest. Let us give time for these programs, these reforms to take root. Because like the fuel subsidy, Nigerians many a times mistake the issue of the fuel subsidy protest. What happened in the fuel subsidy protest was that over a long period of time, it was a reform. And we came to a conclusion after a long periodic review of intellectual review of the fuel subsidy to say this is no longer possible. And we all came out to fight, for the removal of fuel subsidy. Yes, we fought for the removal of fuel subsidy. So let us give President Bola Ahmed Tinubu another 3 or 4 years.
But for the protest, people just stuck to it and said, no, they did not want any petrol price hike in 2012. So they all hit the streets and protested.
No, you see, with the removal of fuel subsidy, we equally have more money coming to the government. We have more money coming to the federal government, to the state.
Would it have been any different than in 2012 when they hit the streets to protest?
Yes, what happened in 2012 was that after a period
it's a similar narrative.
No, it's not.
You wanted to play the track for you to listen to? No, it's a similar thing they were talking about.
No, you see, 2012 was a street referendum to say this subsidy, is it working, is not working. What we are saying at the moment, the protest should be...
At that time, the government went on and they had town halls. They were talking to the people, trying to explain why they needed to remove the petrol subsidy. No such thing happened in this case.
What we are saying is this. At the moment, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has just come on board, barely a year in office, and he has initiated very laudable reforms. So what we are saying is that let us as citizens, not even as members of parliament, give President Bola Ahmed Tinubu another 3 or 4 years for us to assess what he has been able to achieve with the reforms. If at that point, the removal of fuel subsidy, if he stays with us for 3 years, and we say the removal of fuel subsidy has not in any way helped us, has not in any way helped to develop the country, all of us at that point in time will be able to march and protest.
Let me come in briefly.
Pardon me. We need to go at this point.
Let me just unfortunately, just briefly that Atiku, Abubakar, Obi, all of them agreed that fuel subsidy was going to be removed.
But they were not voted for.
Yes.
So that's separate.
So what I'm saying is that
that would be material now.
That it should be removed. My final appeal is that only 1 year in office. Okay. By the time,
I guess time will tell.
Time
will tell. Gentlemen,
we appeal that they should.
We have to thank both of you for coming on this morning. We also do know that some breaking news coming through. A building has collapsed in Maryland, in Lagos. 3 people have been confirmed dead. 2 adults were rescued alive, and 1 trapped under the rubble. And Lasema say they are there at the moment. Well, coming up now is Business Morning.
Thank you so much, Chamberlain. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. We do business for about 30 minutes. Beginning from the global oil space, where prices eased on Thursday as concerns over weak demand in China, which is the world's largest crude oil importer, and expectations of a nearing ceasefire deal in the Middle East overcame gains in the previous session after draws in the United States inventories. Take a look at the number. It's red, and its features for September that we're looking at is dropped 63 cents right there. Well, we don't have the numbers right yet, but 0.8% is what was dropped from Brent to $81.08 a barrel, while WTI of the United States still for September features slid also, lost 63 cents, that's about 0.8% also, to $76.96 a barrel. Both benchmarks settled high on Wednesday, snapping consecutive sessions of declines after the Energy Information Administration, that's the IEA, said that crude inventories fell by 3.7 million barrels last week. U.S. gasoline stocks also dropped 5.6 million barrels compared with what was expected of about 400,000. Distillate stockpiles also went down 2.8 million barrels against expectations of 250,000 barrels increase. Now let's do a bit of corporate now, and this is coming from Airtel Africa PLC, one of the telecommunications provider and mobile money service provider in Africa. They're here in Nigeria as well as some countries in East and Central Africa, where we see their result there for the quarter ended June the 30th. We see their revenue increase by 19% in Nigeria, but even more in East Africa. And they keep telling us that this is because of that devaluation of the Naira, the drop in the value of Naira, which we report almost every day. Reported currency revenues declined, they report in dollars, by 16.1% to 1.156. That's about $1 billion in Nigeria. And EBITDA dropped also to 45.30% from 49.56%. That's for EBITDA. And then the substantial increase in fuel prices across markets and lower contribution of Nigeria to the group after the Naira devaluation, they say, contributed a lot to the decline of EBITDA. That's earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. That's EBITDA, the margin that dropped right there. Now, see, the profit after tax went up by more than 120% at $31 million. Operating profits was down, however, 27.4% at $335 million. Total customer base grew to 155.4, grew by 8% to 155.4 million. Data usage per customer also increased. We see a lot of people turning to, I think, sort of normal calls, mobile calls, more of WhatsApp and all of that. I guess that would explain this data usage right there. And of course, helping Airtel Africa to increase its profitability. But in all, I guess the factor of Nigeria's currency, the Naira, dropping, and what's going on around the foreign exchange space was a deterrent to their increase for the period under consideration. Now we come to properly in Nigeria. Now the Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, our friend right here on Business Shows, Mr. Abubakar Kyari, says that the new Ministry of Livestock Development will take off after the Presidential Committee submits its report. He adds that the President is anxious for the Livestock Development Initiative to take off.
Mr. President today has expressed his excitement, has expressed his anxiety, and he's very anxious for this to take off. You are well aware that a new ministry has been created by Mr. President, and he is waiting for the report so that the ministry can take off immediately after the report has been submitted by the committee. So everybody is excited. We in the agricultural field were also excited. All stakeholders are very, very excited because there is so much potential when you unbundle the livestock sector. And there is the value chain that would create enormous wealth, creation of jobs, and most importantly, nutrition for the food security aspect of the country.
Well, very important conversation, and we have been waiting and are still waiting. We would really love to host the Minister of Agriculture on our show because we know how important that contribution from the food sector or the agricultural sector is to our inflation and everything at the end of the day that we're dealing with, economic challenge, we're dealing with the protests that is being pushed for by the youths in the country for August. I'm sure if they had a lot of food, affordable food, I'm sure that tension would have reduced a whole lot. We look at our inflation numbers and we see the major driver being, of course, food and energy, but food very top on that list. And of course, the creation of that livestock ministry, even though some analysts have said there was really no need for that, the Ministry of Agriculture could have captured, because they do have a department for livestock. But we're expectant, and we will still very much love to host the Minister of Agriculture on our show. And that's why we have that campaign still running. We need to deal with food security in Nigeria. Yes. All right, now let's look at the Naira for yesterday. They say it's summer demand that is causing it, that in spite of a hike in interest rates and in spite of the many interventions we've had recently from the central bank into the currency market, we still see the Naira dropping. It was also a negative one yesterday. We saw a drop from 1,548 Naira 76 kobo to 1,586 Naira 71 kobo. That's a 2.45% drop in one trading session. I learned it was the flip on in the parallel market, but I mean, I'm not very sure about that. NAFEX also recorded a loss of 1.12%, so closed at 1,589 Naira 61 kobo. Let's find out what's really going on. Is this just about the summer holiday and the demand for dollar? I know a lot of people, you talk to them now, they've traveled abroad for the holiday with the children. The children are on holiday, so parents want to make the most of the bonding opportunity that they have now, but must they travel abroad? Anyways, let's discuss this with research manager at financial derivatives company, Teve Kumeka, joins us from Victoria Island. Hi, Teve, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, good to have you. But we see the worrying trend with the Naira, and the news going around says it's just summer demand, so we shouldn't be worried. What does FDC see?
Yeah, thank you so much. Like you read, is correct. The official rate depreciated. But if you look at the parallel market, we have the Naira has regained slightly in the parallel market from 1685 to 1590 per dollar. So on Tuesday, which is on the 23rd of July, the CBN MPC made a decision by hiking rates by 50 basis points. Before that, Naira depreciated because investors were more rational and they were not sure that the CBN was going to hike rates or they were going to hold. Then immediately after the decision was made, the Naira further dipped. What we are seeing in the Naira, in the exchange rates, is based on the cost of borrowing for banks now. It has increased. So banks find it difficult to borrow from the CBN to buy the foreign reserve, the foreign exchange to keep in their reserve. So if cost of borrowing is expensive, this is going to reduce arbitrage in the markets. So if there is no gain for arbitrage, speculative behavior of banks or other stakeholders in the forex markets will reduce. So the CBN target is basically to stabilize the naira. We want the naira to be around 1,500 naira to a dollar in the next quarter, in this quarter 3 that we have in 2024. So given all these measures taken by the central bank, the naira is likely going to stabilize as we enter the third quarter.
Yeah, but Kumeka, we see this in spite of the intervention that the naira is still depreciating, and that, I mean, in the past we see that once there's an intervention by the central bank, at least it will gain and try to stabilize. Of course, we celebrate the reduction in the gap between the official and the parallel markets, but I mean, seeing the drop in spite of the CBN's intervention, doesn't that worry you?
Yeah, we are worried because the hike is basically to attract foreign investors, new hot money from foreign investors. So this tells you that what happens in the forex markets are multifaceted. Is not just the hike in interest rates that we bring in hot money. There are other risks, and investors are very sentimental about risks and other things that go on in the forex market. So increasing the risks is going to affect businesses. Yes, savings will increase. We are going to attract foreign investors that will bring in foreign currency. Yeah, savings has a positive relationship with interest rates, but investment has a negative relationship with real interest rates. So to achieve the stability in exchange rates, the CBN needs to go beyond just hiking rates and look at other factors that play in the forex markets.
All right, so let's look at commodities now, prices. And of course, we do know that the naira is what is being used for these commodities, but it's harvest season. We should have a bit of relief. What's really going on with commodities prices?
Yeah, we are entering harvest season. New yams are out, but surprisingly, the price of 3 tubers of yam has increased to about 18,000 naira. That is surprising. So that tells us that the general prices of commodities is not just seasonality, whether we're in the harvest period. They are more structural than just anchoring on one issue about we're entering the harvest season. We have issues of energy costs, we have issues of transportation insecurity, which the CBN governor mentioned as a factor of increasing price of commodities. So if the structural issues are being handled, then we might see stability in price, because farmers are harvesting, but how do they move their harvest? How do they move their produce to the end users? That's a major challenge. So if there are disruptions in supply chain, then harvesting will not make any significant effect in bringing down the price of commodities. But not to forget, you know, we observe a collaboration between the monetary policy and the fiscal policy, whereby the government, the waiver on import duty and levy on some commodities. That we also, in the third quarter of 2024, we're likely going to see prices of commodity go down.
All right, thank you so much, Teva Kumeka, research manager with Financial Derivatives Company. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
So the issue with the quality of petroleum products and, of course, Dangote is still in the news. We'll get on that on the other side of the program. Stay with us. Just a break. You're welcome back. Still watching Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. We're turning attention to the oil and gas sector. The quality of petroleum products in circulation in Nigeria has been in, well, a bit of a controversy in recent times. And it all started with the NMDPRA asking that, or alleging that the diesel from Dangote refinery is substandard. And then the lawmakers themselves went there, led by the Speaker, went there to check for themselves, to have a first-hand information, and then they did the test themselves with, in the laboratory at Dangote. Well, since we've known there's been updates on that, lawmakers and other individuals asking for the sack of the NMDPRA boss, and we've had a lot of voices speaking for the Dangote refinery. But there are other players in that sector, the modular refineries. There are other refiners, domestic refiners. And they say they have actually been facing some of these issues even before now, only highlighted by Dangote, since Dangote is a giant, we know, in the rail sector of Nigeria. We have joining us to share some of their perspective of those modular refineries, Mr. Eche Idoko. He's the Publicity Secretary of Crude Oil Refiners Association of Nigeria, CORAN. Mr. Idoko, good morning, and thank you for your time.
Yeah, good morning. It's good to have me again on your program.
Great. So this issue of the quality of petroleum products in circulation, we know the lawmakers have said they're investigating. High sulfur is a challenge this time. The flashpoint. What's the perspective of CORAN?
Oh, okay. I think there's been a bit of sensationalism with that particular report. And there is a need for downstream and midstream, which is emerging, for us to de-escalate and properly put issues in perspective. First of all, we want to say that the issue of sulfur content, which was highlighted by the NMDPRA, does not automatically make products bad. What it meant was that it makes the product more environmental friendly. The modular refineries and Dangote, as the case with your refineries in Nigeria, haven't been producing outside what is within the circle. The declaration of the ECOWAS ministers was supposed to start with effect from January, so they have till January to regularize whatever is the requirement for the sulfur content as stipulated by the new NMDPRA guidelines. So in a real sense, the issue of sulfur that have been jumped on, it does not warrant the kind of attention that has been given to it, or rather it has been blown out of proportion by a certain interest. Because I can tell you that as before January this year, products that were imported into the country was a minimum of
Looks like, well, unfortunately, it looks like the network of Mr. Idoko's device is not very strong at this time. So Mr. Idoko, can you hear me? Okay, so I guess we may not be able to have that conversation with Mr. Idoko, but we will try to get him, perhaps get him in the studio and be able to get that conversation. I hope we can do it tomorrow, depending on his schedule. But unfortunately, the network does not allow us to do that, to have this conversation right now. But the modular refineries are the smaller refineries. And of course, they do contribute to the stock, petroleum product stock in the country. And well, it would be nice to also get their perspective on how they are dealing with this issue of the quality of petroleum products that they also share in circulation in the country. But yesterday, if you watched our news at 10, we did bring you a report. The issue of oil theft is still a challenge, still dwindling the official crude production in the country, and of course, leaking our revenue on what we could use. So in River State, that was discovered. Our reporter, Charles, was there and saw the Navy went around to capture an incident or an area which has been used for that. We'll try to bring you that report that Charles filed in. I hope we can do that before the end of the program. If we do not, you could just watch Channels Television for more of that. Let's see if we can get into the market, since we're not able to have the conversation with Koran, but we promise to bring it to you in the nearest future. If not tomorrow, we'll do it next week, God's grace. So let's look at how the market fared yesterday at the close of trade. The NGX was again in the red. The day before it was 0.08%. Yesterday dropped 0.12%. Still hovering around 100,000. I don't know if that's any comfort at this time, but we lost 68 billion naira from the market cap to close at 56, beg your pardon, 0.83. The sectors, banking is still having to deal with profit taking, almost 1%. There you have it, down. Consumer goods also down. Industrial goods recovered, as well as insurance. Oil and gas maintains the status of unchanged. And we know, I think FCMB, they're holding their facts behind the figures today. So there's still a whole lot of activities going on around the banks. So, but it's not one way. If there are gains, then somebody has to take the gain. And talking about FCMB, they topped the trade yesterday. They traded 133.292 million in volume. Access Co, we know they're in the market at this time. They followed as of the top trade. Zenith Bank was also part of the top trades. And so you have the banking still going on there. Of course, they're asking for you to trust in them and put your money there. Well, but that's up to you. And if you get your findings. Now, let's see if we can bring that report by our reporter, Charles, in Rivers State, on the issue of oil theft, which is still a major challenge for the country.
In a well-concealed private compound in Okozi village, somewhere in Oba Ebemandoni local government area of Rivers State, naval operatives have made a massive discovery.
You can see. Good boy. Even me too, I don't begin.
They are part of the Navy's Operation Delta Sanity from the Nigerian Navy ship Pathfinder. The commander says this illegal facility was discovered by their intelligence team.
About 2 to 3 weeks ago, the Nigerian Navy extended the Operation Delta Sanity operations, which is made to cut the incidence of crude oil theft in Niger Delta. My main Nigerian Navy ship, Pathfinder, through our intelligence, we were able to discover this place. And you can see these bags. See all of them? Thousands of them, including the one we saw in the drums, were used to siphon and refine illegal products from the pipelines.
The commander adds that the 2 suspects will be handed over to the prosecuting agencies, even as he estimates the facility's capacity at over 200,000 liters.
We don't have the measurement, but for what you can see, you have seen the tanks, over 62 of them. Each of them contain about 1,000. And you see thousands of this one here, including the one he has converted a poultry, so to speak. He converted it into a warehouse. There are thousands of them there. It could be about 200,000 and above.
The owner of the facility says he uses the proceeds from his illicit business to supplement his legitimate income, and that he makes over 4.5 million naira every month.
It's just for me to meet up for the expenses I'm doing for, you know how the country be. No matter anything they carry for going for road, even though it's original, they will ask you for something. So after everything, nothing come out.
200,000 liters of suspected illegally refined products are in this private facility here. They say 2 suspects have been arrested and are in custody, even as they continue to investigate to catch those involved in this massive operation.
So that's it, all thefts. Even in a neighborhood that one might not even expect or suspect, is still going on. But somebody did ask, is it possible to channel what we call illegal refining into the official and legal space and capture that as a product? We're talking about availability of petroleum products. You know, is that possible? Well, it's not in my place to say. An expert will have to say that, but this is a continuing conversation. And yes, we'll try to get the perspective of Koran and all of this issue tomorrow or by next week, God's grace. We'll reach out to Mr. Idoko since we couldn't have that conversation due to the network failure right there. But that's the much we can take on this side of business. Let's head back to the Sunrise Daily Studios.
Welcome back. Yes, indeed. Let's bring you this developing story. The Lagos State Emergency Management Agency informs us that preliminary reports on the building collapse at 13 Wilson and Bass Street, Arojobe Estate, Maryland, in Lagos, which happened this morning. Now, the agency said they responded to the incident and discovered that a set of 3 terraces that were under construction had collapsed. Search and rescue operations began, according to them, immediately. 3 men were recovered dead. 2 were rescued alive. One person is trapped under the rubble, and then the person was eventually rescued alive, thankfully. And they say it was by themselves, LASEMA, and the Lagos State Fire Service. But at the moment, they say all six site workers are receiving pre-hospital care on location, while it's the SEMU, they've been contacted for the remains of the 3 fatalities. Asama goes on to say that a combined team of agency personnel, fire service, and Nigeria police are working at the scene. And so we'll get you more details on this matter as we get them. So building has collapsed in Lagos, in Maryland area. Unfortunately, 3 people have died as a result of that one.
A really terrible story, Chamberlain. 3 people dead in circumstances that are totally avoidable. Thankfully, 2 people are alive. 1 person was rescued from under the rubble, from what we understand, and they're currently receiving treatment. But it's another issue of building collapse, another issue of regulatory. Will I say another issue for regulatory authorities to look at in terms of how they're really keeping up to the task of ensuring that we do not witness this on a more frequent basis. And also to developers, for those who are building these things, they also have a responsibility, because who is going to bear, responsibility for the people who have now died? Who are we going to hold accountable for the people who have lost their lives in this very avoidable incident?
Well, the thing about all of this is that much as those who are putting up this building, they may think that they are trying to cut costs as a result of perhaps what's going on with the economy. But if they actually step back, it's actually being penny wise, pound foolish. Because at the end of the day, the cost that you're trying to save, you spend some money putting up the structure to a certain level. Now,
look at that.
All of what you spent has gone down. So wouldn't it make sense if you spend just a little more and then achieve the quality so that you don't spend all this and it collapses? Because chances are now the Lagos State authorities may take over the property and the premises, and or you may have lost every other thing because it's
I really wish it were only pounds that they're wasting, Chamberlain. What about the human resources, you know, that can never be recovered? Well, if you lose money, you can always make it back.
Yeah.
But when lives are lost, how do we wake the dead up? That's a big question.
Regulatory bodies. I've heard allegations that some of these bodies, when they get into those sites,
they look away.
Yeah, and then when they're induced, they look away. So you can't have regulatory bodies who are trusted with doing a job, and then you get in there, you do something else. So what should the authorities do if you're actually put in there to do a job? So it's a cycle that we need to keep addressing to ensure that the right things are done, because at the end of the day, if you don't do the right things, you never know. It's like throwing, what did they say, stone in the, what's that proverbial one, in the market.
You never know who it will hit.
Yeah. And then speaking about which, the protests. First of all, Laulu is here with us, former presidential aide. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning. Good to see you again.
So many things in this happening this week. The one that seems to be gathering momentum because there are several meetings being held to stave it off is a protest.
Yeah.
This planned protest, of which some say they don't know who the leaders are. But of course, some government people are already accusing certain people of being behind it. But in terms of how all of this is playing out, both from the organizers, the planners, the governments who are meeting, and the narratives, what's your impression of it?
Yeah. Well, I think that first and foremost, it's important for all of us to understand whatever could be the basis of this kind of protest that is being planned. You know, I think it is helpful to have some kind of feedback from the people to the people in government to let them understand the urgency of their work, you know, and to stress what is clearly the impact of the hardship on the people. So to that extent, it is very useful, even for people in government, you know, to understand that, look, the things that we are doing, we are here for the people. The decisions that we take or the decisions that we don't take have, you know, an undeniable impact on the day-to-day living of a huge number of people. So it's helpful for that reason. And secondly, yes, you know, people have a right to protest. You know, that is not only, I think it's not only a fundamental right to protest, but even in a democracy, you know, dissent, the place of dissent has to be, you know, eroded. You know, we have to understand that to have an effective democracy, we must have some dissent. You know, the question is, how do you resolve the dissent? Now, the other part of the issue is that there has been quite a lot of undertones about, you know, this impending protest. You know, if you are active in some of the WhatsApp groups, there is an ethnic dimension to it, which is quite worrying. You know, because people are calling attention to stuff that has happened in this country and the kind of damage that has happened. Some people are saying that, look, the last time we had this kind of protest, you know, people destroyed public infrastructure and properties of, you know, individuals from a particular portion of the country and left out, you know. So that is a thing of concern, you know, because we don't want something that is clearly going to be ethnic motivated. The problems that we have, or tribal motivated, or in any kind of any of our, you know, how do they call it, detention lines. Yeah. You know, we don't want something that is divisive if it's necessary to have a protest to speak out. But when you hear this very serious undertone, and I would say especially in Lagos State, you know, there's a burgeoning of people to say that, look, some people want to destroy Lagos. This also happened the last time. So that gives a big question mark to the credibility of the planning of the protest.
You know what I mean? Anyone who gives this for those who might be those ethnic jingoists, I think they should be ashamed of themselves, really, because, I mean, they should be able to read between the lines. But let me show you this and get your impression. I'm going to ask of this one, but listen to this for a moment.
The subsidy or not, we will still be in problem. If they remove subsidy, they will share the money. They have already shared it before collecting it. They say over 400 billion will go to Jonathan's government. Over 400 billion will go to state government. Over 200 billion will go to local government. They have already spent the money before they earn it. They are just fooling Color Day to come and supervise an empty collection.
No force on earth can stop this revolution. The fact that I am here today with my children, with all these wonderful Nigerians, send the message to Abuja and wherever they are, that the struggles for which we have been planning and working all these years have now taken off.
Governor of the Central Bank, Sanusi, came to Lagos and said, if you don't remove fuel subsidy, Nigeria will collapse. This country is not going to collapse.
So there you go. 2012 in Lagos, the Occupy Nigeria protest. So that happened in Lagos at the time, and there was no issue. The ACN too kicked against it at the time. It was PDP that was the ruling party. And it turned out that only recently, I think former governor of Ekiti State, Dr. Fayemi, was saying at an event that was organized, I think in Abuja, he says, look, some of these things, it's all politics. They did it at the time, but it was all politics. So that was his narrative. So if these kinds of people, I mean, you also heard Mr. Fadana's voice, if these kind of people were to come out from August 1, will people be worried that thugs and everything will go wrong with this?
So I mean, and I'm grateful that you actually brought this up. So we know those people that we saw on the screen. So these are not people that, you know, you say, where are they coming from? You don't really question their motivations the way, you know, we are having to deal with now. There have been people like Shuwore, you know, who have been speaking in support of the protest, but I'm not even sure whether Shuwore is even involved in the planning himself. We don't know who the leaders are. Now, that doesn't mean anything really in terms of whether it is not going to be credible. It doesn't matter. You know, people can just get up and protest. It's their right. You know, where I think the credibility comes in, and which the leaders of the protest have to manage sensitively and properly, is that, look, this cannot be perceived as an ethnic agenda. You know, please, we don't want in this country a destruction. People should protest. You know, I mean, if I knew the people that were planning this protest, you know, I could say that I will join the protest. Okay? I mean, it's within my right. But we don't know the folks that are behind this. They have the right to do it. And what we are hearing in terms of all this ethnic jingoism that is going on is disturbing. But do people have the right to protest? Absolutely. Is there a basis for protest? Absolutely. People are suffering. There are serious problems. And like we saw in that 2012, we know people set up, people that have quite a bit of credibility, people that have demonstrated a level of public interest and try to defend a common good. We haven't seen that so far in terms of this.
But look at this next one. It wasn't just ACN at the time, too, but when he eventually changed to, the DNA was still there. Former President Buhari, which he served under, himself, Chief BC Akonde at the time, they all marched to INEC in protest as well at the time. I think it had to do with the Anambra governorship elections at that time, too. So they also went out there and protested, and nobody batted an eyelid. Yes, government was concerned, but they still went out there and protested.
Yeah, I mean, it will be interesting to see, you know, some of the, if we're looking at it from the point of view of the political divide, it will be interesting to see some of the political leaders, you know, or people that have public interest to come out and say that, look, okay, you know, this is we are behind this, and we are going to do this.
Has backed it.
And it is within, you know, I don't know whether Vice President Atiku is even in the country as we speak. I don't know, you know, and I don't say that, you know, in any way just to say that, well, look, if Atiku comes out, for instance, let's say that, if Atiku says that, yes, I'm going to be part of this protest, then the protest begins to gather credibility. Very, very simple, because we can then say, that, okay, we know this guy, we know this. If the folks in LP, the folks in PDP, or some of their friends, or their... Yeah.
There's another interesting one. Okay. They just informed. Let's see if we can listen to that. I think it's quite interesting.
Represent the interests of Nigerians. They are all compromised electoral officers. They have committed many criminal offenses by rigging elections against Nigerians.
Yeah, I mean, so
I suppose the president then, now, but that was him then.
Absolutely. So and that's the point. I don't think that the president himself, you know, or any reasonable member of his government will ever come out to say that people don't have the right to protest. You know, I mean, that would be completely absurd, you know, knowing the pedigree of the president, just like we saw. The president, you know, I think somebody even said that the president is the father of protesters in Nigeria. So clearly, you know, the right of the Nigerian people to protest at any given time, you know, is fundamental. And I think even the law provides for the police, you know, to guide, you know, and protect people that are protesting, you know. So I don't have any problem with that. The issue that we have to, and it's important to talk about this so that we can avoid, you know, the ethnic dimension, you know, and what might be the ethnic targeting. Because once people are talking, and the boss is very loud in the social media. It's very loud that, oh, okay, some people want to attack this place, some people think, and this was what happened the last time they destroyed this, they didn't destroy that. We don't want that.
Do you think it's propaganda, though? Some people will say, look, those who do not want it will begin to spin anything to, you know, try and turn what was supposed to be a legitimate protest on its head to whip up sentiment. And that is the sort of thing that will now begin to make people withdraw, or to say, no, I'm not going to do this anymore, or to say, oh, is that the original plan? You know. So do you think that this could be you know, propaganda that has been fed into the entire discourse of the protest just to, you know, whip up sentiments?
Well, so you know, there's no way that we can dismiss that. You know, we don't know whether that is actually the case. But what we know is that there is evidence in the past, you know, that certain properties were destroyed, you know, and it will suggest, it will seem as if there were some deliberate attempt to destroy certain infrastructure, destroy certain properties, and the claims that certain people were left out is also there. You know, I haven't checked that. So my point is that, yes, you know, somebody might have developed...
It's interesting you say you haven't checked that, because, I mean, I remember the NSAS protest. They happened at the Lekki toll gate, and then remember I was there for days peacefully.
Yeah.
That protest was largely peaceful until the night when soldiers, you know, every time people talk about how the NSAS protest was, you know, became disheveled and you know, caused chaos after a while. It did not happen immediately. Something happened, events led to it becoming chaotic.
Right.
So after it became chaotic and, you know, it was seen that there were just random attacks.
Right.
What it appeared to the ordinary eye was that these were, you know, people who had just gone berserk. And it wasn't just in Lagos. That berserkness affected many other parts of the country, even as far as the northern parts of Nigeria, which largely did not take part in the NSAS protest. So when these allegations come up that, oh, certain properties were targeted, yes, we know that establishments were targeted, you know, political, you know, establishments that were thought to belong to, you know, political people, but largely it would seem that the rampage was just random, so to speak, unless, of course, government officials at that time knew something and we did not.
All of these things are clearly possibilities that, yes, you know, we had a decent protest up to a point. It went berserk, and when it went berserk, you know, there were unpremeditated attacks, and there were premeditated attacks. You know,
so
in the mix.
That cannot be ruled out.
Yeah,
but
that's
generally, because we saw businesses, generally, is it in Surulere, is it in Lekki? We saw international businesses, ShopRite, for instance, were looted in almost every place that we saw. So it would seem that the destruction and the general wanton looting that followed that particular protest was general in nature.
The other
so
thing,
do you think that, well, we cannot rule out people who use the opportunity to now start to target, but to say that...
And there was narrative at that time that was going out, saying that should happen. If you remember, there were narratives during that time to say, go and bomb this, go and destroy this. We were hearing it in the social media, that showed that there might have been some targeted onslaught on particular infrastructure. So everything is possible in a state of anarchy. I think the other thing that we have to also say is that, so if you have a protest, you have a fundamental human rights to say that, look, I don't like this has to stop. But when you begin to say, when you want to use a protest to change a government, now that is against the Constitution, it's against the law, because the law says that this is how government is changed. There's an election every 4 years, and once, within our system, whether regardless of the problems, that once somebody emerges as governor or president or senator, they have 4 years. The only way to remove them is through an impeachment or resignation or death. So if we are going to have a protest that we say, oh, sack the government, we want the government sacked. And I guess to the extent that you have freedom of speech, you can say that. But also, the people who are involved also have the right to say, no, I have the mandate, I have a constitutional, legal mandate to be here for 4 years. So that is also something, a contention that we have to also discuss openly.
I know that my colleague Ayo is willing to get into this. Let me quickly let him in. Yeah. Otherwise, I would be on to the end. Ayo, please.
Well, thank you, Bob. It's actually an interesting conversation that we're having. And it's even a good thing that, we are all, in the media, having practiced for long enough to know the issues that are arising. But, Mr. Akonde, the question that I would like to begin with, in this conversation is, have we learned anything from previous similar, protests? I'm asking that because Chamberlain and Malquer there, showed us some things that happened in our past, not too long ago, less than 10 years. No, a little over 10 years, 12 years ago, actually. But then before that, we have had quite a number of protests, similar protests in the 90s, some even in the 80s, the Ali Must Go protest and all of that. And some of those issues, it will seem like they still subsist until now. Have we learned anything, both as a people who react and as governments who are the reason why people protest? Have we learned anything?
Yeah, I mean, and thank you for that question. The sad reality is that the Nigerian political elite, and this is the point that we've been making over and over again, and we have to make again. It seems that our leaders are tone deaf. It's as if they don't understand what is going on. And we have said it. There is too much insensitivity. The people in government, they are not demonstrating enough empathy. They are not showing that they too, they are part of the struggles and the hardship. They are living on as if, it's just business as usual. So to that extent, it would seem that the political elite have not learned the lesson. We have said it. Is it the time for you to buy 150 million naira worth of SUVs for about 400 legislators in a time like this when people are suffering? Is it a time to spend 27 billion naira to build for the vice president a new house? I mean, there are a lot of things. The president did say that, yes, I'm going to cut the travel expenses. Since he said it, we've not had any report of, okay, this is how much we have saved. It is important to carry people along. And this kind of hue for protest, they are just symptomatic of the kind of suffering and the frustration of the people. So the behavior of the political elite does not reflect the reality on the ground in Nigeria. It does not reflect the state of the nation in terms of the difficulties that the regular average Nigerian is going through. And so government leaders, political elite must begin to show that, look, we understand what is going on. These are the sacrifices that we are also prepared and ready to make. Just like you guys out there are making sacrifices. Look, this is also what we are doing. This is not a time for any kind of excessive spending.
Well, The Ali Must Go protest was 46 years ago, 1978 to be precise. And of course, you know what it was about. It was about the increase in school fees, increase in some fees in school. And the similar thing happened just last week, if you remember, that the University of Ibadan students were protesting that, some measures were being taken that was not satisfactory to them. Of course, somehow, that was quickly quelled. But now, we're still having the same issues. In the 90s, it was more of political protests all over the place. Now, you said that government officials need to learn. 46 years ago, the people who were in government are not the ones in government today. So something must be fundamentally wrong if what we discussed last year, in the past 46 years, the protests of 46 years ago are still similar. The issues are still similar to what we are talking about today. Part of the protest of 1978 was high cost of living. And this is what this one is about as well. So something is fundamentally wrong, Mr. Konde, and I don't think it really does have to do with... What exactly do you think is going on here?
Well, so yes, to an extent, I think there is also a cultural and systemic attitude, within our social milieu. It's a cultural and systemic attitude that doesn't distinguish between, or that shows a different kind of behavior when people are outside and when people are inside. And we have to deal with that. So it's a cultural thing. And that's why we're saying that, look, what is important to all of us is that let us have, some people have called it an elite consensus, to say that, look, this is the minimum that any government, local, state, and federal ought to go. Okay. And when that benchmark is not there, we call them out. All right, regardless of our political differences, our religious differences, or our ethnic differences.
We have a few minutes for this question and some feedback as well. So let's see if we can do this in 1 minute. It's about Dangote Refinery. Let me add this to perhaps the response that you might want to give previously about it. Now, we understand they say that the former president executed 7 forward sale agreements. Right. They borrowed money and then used crude for repayments. And then they say that, for instance, the loan agreement that the current president took from Afrexim Bank, $3.3 billion. And they say that the crude oil commitments for that one was about 11.58% interest at 90,000 barrels per day. And so when some did all the calculation and breakdown, they said, look, if you look at all those deductions, Nigeria has about 200,000 barrels per day from NNPCL. And Dangote Refinery needs way more than 650,000 barrels per day. And so the big question is, does NNPC actually have that crude oil to give to Dangote Refinery?
Yeah, so in the analysis of things as they are now, if we are to take the information that we have as the fact, apparently something has to give, and I think this point has been made for long now. And somebody came up with the idea, I think it is worth considering, that, hey, maybe you give the man or the other people that have the refineries, maybe you give them some rights to lift them a oil block, so that they can lift their home crude. Okay. And then, because we do have, by the grace of God, those blessings in this country.
All right, we're still going to dissect this much further, but we have to thank you for coming on this morning, Lalo Akonde, former presidential aide. Do we have time for some feedback?
Well, let's quickly see. We have this one from Jesus for the Street. Nigeria has a lifetime opportunity to end Kabbalism. Kabbalism once and for all now. For the more challenging the conditions, the more marvelous the opportunities too. I encourage Nigerians to take the protest to NNPCL and NMDPRA, the heart of our problems since the 1970s. And he says, Ireo.
Oh, okay. All right. There you go.
We have so many more, but sadly, that's all the time we have, Chimbley, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I think we'll make time to take them tomorrow, so it's not lost on us. Well, that is the show today. We do thank you all for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. Chamberlain, so goodbye.
Thank you for watching. Have a blessed Thursday. I'm Mark Belgwin, Yusuf.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a productive one.
Stay connected to the world with Channels TV Podcast and get all the trending stories. Simply log on to channelstv.com, click on podcast, select the program of your choice, and listen. Our podcast is available on Apple, Google, and Spotify. Tap the expertise you trust. Touch the stories that touch you. Anytime, anywhere.
Admission, admission, admission. Admission is ongoing at Koladaisi University, Ibadan, where we have state-of-the-art laboratories and studios with structured, uninterrupted academic calendar. You can enroll for a variety of courses in the Faculty of Basic Medical Sciences, Faculty of Law, Faculty of Pure and Applied Sciences, and Faculty of Arts Management and Social Sciences. For inquiries, please call 070-3795-3524, 070-3782-1221, 080-6015-8996, or visit our website on www.koladaisiuniversity.edu.ng. Koladaisi University, advancing the frontiers of knowledge. Announcer, Mr. Aruna Olawale Adetu, Registrar and Secretary to the Council, Koladaisi University, Ibadan.
The following is a paid presentation by ShopX TV. You're watching ShopX TV, home to some of the most popular international brands in Africa. We are now proud to introduce our biggest offer of the year, the ShopX Mid-Year Sales. Yes, from now until the end of July 2024, we will be offering our customers 20,000 naira off this home fitness machine. SportX Digital Compact Treadmill. The compact foldable treadmill that makes being active and losing weight fast and easy. Just unfold it and walk, jog, or run. And when you're done, just fold it and store it away. You get the SportX Digital Compact Treadmill System complete with a rugged commercial-grade traction belt, large LCD multifunctional display that displays speed, time, distance, calories, and has 12 different exercise programs, as well as a magnetic safety key.
The SportX treadmill has really helped me get back in shape after childbirth.
You would normally pay up to 400,000 naira for the SportX Compact Digital Treadmill. But call the number on your screen now or scan the QR code and get the SportX Compact Digital Treadmill for just 380,000 naira, saving you 20,000 naira. Incredible! Call the number on your screen now to place your order. The proceeding was a paid presentation brought to you by ShopX TV.
A warm welcome to you. This is News Track on Channels Television. I am Bukola Koka, and these are the stories we're following for you this hour. 3 people